Hey folks, sorry I couldn't be here today. We are going to continue with the immune system. So humor me and write this down again. Looking at the immune system, what we chatted about yesterday was the built-in innate immune system, which was not specific to any type of pathogen in particular. It's not a certain against bacterial infection or a viral pathogen. The innate system is really just stopping all pathogens from entering. So stop entry of all pathogens. And we had talked about a bunch of these things. We had looked at skin. That was a physical barrier, keeping pathogens out of our body. We talked about how when you breach the skin, like you cut yourself, it's pretty darn easy to end up with some kind of little infection because those pathogens, especially bacteria on your skin, they're looking to get in if they can find a break in that armor. So there was skin. We talked about hair. And we had looked at things like eyelashes. And then your good old nose hair and ear hair, which we saw some wonderful Google images of. And that's another physical barrier. And to trap pathogens. What else did we talk about? This might not be the same order as yesterday. That's okay. We looked at mucus, aka boogers, aka phlegm, which is there like a sticky trap. So that's going to trap your pathogens. And then we talked about once we've trapped the pathogens, we have those little hair-like projections, cilia. So they are going to move the mucus. We'll throw the place in. Remember, we find these things in the trachea, which is your windpipe. So that moves mucus up the trachea away from your lungs. Lungs are a really bad place to have pathogens get in. Make it look like that. Skin, hair, mucus, cilia. What else did we talk about? We talked about how a lot of the mucus, the cilia brings it up to the back of your throat. Some of it you're going to spit out. Some of it floats down from your sinuses. You blow it out your nose. But a lot of it gets swallowed, which sounds kind of gross, but it's a great place to move it because we've got our stomach acid. And that's going to kill pathogens. I know this is, I hope, fairly obvious, but we kill them with acid. And again, that stomach acid probably doing a huge amount of killing for us, which is great. What else did we talk about? We talked about, maybe if I can keep it the same order. We talked about blood pressure. So when you cut yourself, you bleed. And it's kind of a pain sometimes, but that is to push pathogens out of wound. And then by the time the bleeding is stopped and it's starting to heal itself over, you're going to have some of the internal immune system, which we're going to go over this lesson. Those cells will be there ready to fight that bacteria. And then, the worst part I think one of the worst parts of being sick is fever. And fever is trying to kill that pathogen with heat. But we talked about how our bodies, that's a great mechanism, but our bodies don't often have really fine control with that. And sometimes, especially in little kids, their body just goes too crazy by making things too warm, and then their healthy body cells actually end up in danger of having proteins destroyed. So sometimes we have to treat with medication to dial that down a bit. So look at that. We've got lots of different innate immune system structures that are simply barriers for pathogens, or capturing them on the outside before they can get in. What we're going to look at in today's lesson is something called the adaptive immune response. So this is all new. And this is busy. We'll do lots of review on it and make it all make sense and help you remember it. But do put your phone away. Focus on this one, because if you're on your phone, you are going to be totally lost. I can almost guarantee that. So the adaptive immune system is what happens when a pathogen gets past all of those innate barriers. So we're going to say the pathogen evades the innate barriers. So it gets past your skin, or gets into a wound past your blood pressure, or gets past some cilia, or survives the trip into the acidic pit that is our stomachs. Pathogen evades the innate barriers and enters the body. So that's a big difference. And this is alarm bells going off. Again, kind of pardon my language, I guess, but all hell breaks loose when a pathogen gets in your body. It honestly does. And this is why, again, when you might get something like a vaccine or a booster, we talked about how sometimes you feel pretty crummy, and that's because your body is like full-blown attack mode. It goes hard in terms of getting rid of that pathogen, and it needs to keep us alive. So the pathogen evades the innate barriers and enters the body. And this one, this response is specific to different pathogens. So it's adaptive, and your system will actually do different things depending on the pathogen, which is kind of neat. And then we're going to talk about a big part of this system is remembering those pathogens for a quicker future response. So let's go through the steps. You know what I might actually do here? Sorry, I'm going to change this up on you. I have no editing software for these videos, so we're getting this in real time. Just like a regular day at the office of Mr. Heinrich. He screwed something up again. Let's call that number one. The pathogen evades the innate barriers and it gets into your body. So we're going to look at some different kind of cells that show up and start this all hell breaks loose reaction. And the first one that does show up is a special killing cell called a macrophage. So macro means big, and phage means to ingest. So these are big cells that are going to ingest the pathogen. Now, what we have to do here is we actually have to pause a little bit, because I have to teach you the difference between some terminology here so that what happens next is going to make sense. So let's take a little pause. And I have to walk you through two different terms. The first one that you need to know is something called an antigen. So that term is going to be really important for us with this immune response. An antigen is a little chemical marker and these antigens are chemical markers on the outside of all cells. And what they're used for in terms of our body, so chemical marker on outside of all cells, our body uses them to determine self versus foreign. Foreign means that it doesn't recognize it. It's something different. So, in your body, you have trillions of cells, and all of those cells have a specific chemical marker that is unique to you. And what's really cool is your body and your immune system, it recognizes those markers as being self. And so it doesn't attack them. It's a marker that your body goes, yeah, that's okay. We will tolerate that. But when a pathogen comes in, that pathogen, because it's a different cell, is going to have a different antigen, a different chemical marker on it, and your body's going to look at that marker and go, I've never seen that before. Let's kill it. And it just goes totally nutso and tries to kill that thing with a foreign antigen, a foreign chemical marker. This is also the reason, just to help you understand what's going on here, this is also the reason that organ transplants are so difficult for people. So I've heard of people getting kidney transplants, liver transplants, heart transplants, and those are really tricky because if I give you my kidney, so I've got 2 kidneys, and if you need one, you can often take one out of a healthy person and put it in another person. But there's an issue there. My kidney has different chemical markers, different antigens than your body. And so if you take my kidney and all of those cells and put it in your body is going to look at it and go, I've never seen that marker before. Kill it. And even though we're trying to help by putting in a functioning, healthy organ, your body is not going to like it. And what you end up having to do is take different medications to sort of temper that response of your immune system and allow it to tolerate that marker. And to be honest, I don't even know how those medications work. But somehow it kind of turns your body down or turns that off, and you don't immediately destroy, hopefully, the introduced organ. So a little analogy I like to use for antigens is they're like gang tattoos. And I know this might get kind of gnarly, but that's like if you're on the west side, which I guess you got to say west side. Yes, I just did that. And then you got some east side tattoos. You would never, with your east side tattoo, walk over to the west side gang. That would be trouble, right? Because everybody with the west side tattoos would look over at the east side tat and say, no, this ain't going to work. Go get it. And the flip side is true as well. You never, with your west side tattoo, walk over to the east side and try to get into the group because they're going to beat you up. So that's kind of like the antigens in your body. So it could be, hey, here's your cell, and maybe you have little antigens like that, little markers on the outside. So that maybe is your antigen, and your body goes, nope, that's myself, and that's okay. So self equals okay. And then some other cell comes along, some little pathogen, could even be the same shape and same size, but you know what? It's probably going to have some different markers. Actually, it will have. It's going to have different little antigens on the surface, and your body's going to look and go, what is that gang tattoo? I don't recognize that. That's foreign. And when you see foreign, that's attack mode. Attack. So hopefully that makes sense. Antigens, these chemical markers on the outside of all cells. Our cells have them. Pathogens have them. You will only tolerate yours. Any other gang tattoo, it's on like Donkey Kong, as they say. You're going to be in attack mode. So maybe I'll just stop there for that one term so far. So the macrophage is going to ingest the pathogen. And it ingests that pathogen because it recognizes that the pathogen has that unrecognizable foreign antigen. So macrophage ingest pathogen with foreign antigen. So it recognizes that antigen as being bad, and it goes and it engulfs, eats the pathogen, and kills it. Now it does something that I think is pretty gnarly. So step 3, let me keep each step a different color for fun. The macrophage displays that foreign antigen So it kills the pathogen, tears that antigen off, and then displays it for the rest of the immune system to see, so that the rest of the immune system and some other cells that are going to become involved, then they know what this bad antigen, this foreign antigen looks like, and it puts them in attack mode as well. So macrophage displays the foreign antigen for other, there's a glitch, sorry, for other cells to recognize. Now, when that macrophage holds up, basically, or displays on its surface that foreign antigen, some other cells go, whoa, the intruder's here, let's get going. And all of a sudden, all of these defenses mount. Here's what happens next. There are some new players in the game. Another cell shows up and becomes activated. It's called T cells. So T cells are activated by that antigen, and they start to divide. So it's kind of cool. These T cells, they look and they go, whoa, foreign antigen, bad thing here, let's kill it. And they start dividing into some different types of cells. So maybe I'll go Roman numerals now. So number 1, the T cells divide into killer T cells. And their name, I think, describes quite nicely what they're doing. Killer T cells, they kill the pathogen. So they're helping out the, maybe I should say with that antigen, the foreign antigen. Okay, so killer T cells, kill. Pretty straightforward. Whoa, my computer's going nuts here. Sorry, little glitch there, I had to pause. Hopefully my computer doesn't die. So T cell divides into killer Ts, which go and kill with the macrophages trying to take out this pathogen. We have some other T cells called helper Ts. And what they're going to do is they're going to stimulate more T cell division. So they're going to cheer and say, hey, come on T cells, divide, divide, divide. So stimulate more T cells to divide. And they're going to stimulate B cells to divide. We're going to see B cells in a moment. So it stimulates T cell division and B cell division. They're like the little cheerleaders saying, come on, divide, divide. Turn into these other things. Let's get going. Let's get going. So that's your helper Ts. We have something called suppressor T cells. Now these are going to show up right now, but not really going to do anything until the end. Their job is very, very important. They are going to inhibit T and B cells. Again, we'll see the B cells in a minute. But they're going to inhibit all of the dividing and fighting cells. So inhibit T and B cells when the pathogen numbers start to drop. And effectively what they're going to do is they're the ones that signal that the immune response can end, that the war is over, that we've beaten the pathogen, we've beaten the enemy. So it ends the response. Not yet, but eventually. Just to tell you what their job is, but that has not happened yet. They will eventually end the response. We first need to win the war. And then number 4, we produce, or the T cells divide, maybe is a better way to say it, into memory T cells. So the memory T cells are really, really important. They remember this pathogen, this specific one. They remember the pathogen. It's kind of like they're a reconnaissance team taking pictures of that bad gang tattoo. They remember pathogen for a quicker future response. So if this pathogen, some number of weeks or months or years later, shows up again in your body, it's gotten past the innate barriers, then your body can mount an even quicker defense because it's seen this before and it's remembered it. So that's the job of the memory T cells. Now, there is another cell that shows up, and we mentioned it there earlier. Go back to pink here. And we're on number, 5. Not that you need to worry about the number of steps. I'm just breaking it up. Let's chat about those B cells. So we said they divided. We're going to look at that in more detail. So the B cells, they get stimulated by, if you can remember back in your notes, they get stimulated by the helper T cells. And then what they're going to do is they're going to divide themselves into ... Now we get 2 cells here. Just 2 instead of 4. Half the stuff to remember. In no particular order, they divide into memory B cells. And the job of a memory B cell is exactly the same thing we can see on the screen here for the memory T cells. So again, we have another team, another set of cells that will remember the pathogen for a quicker future response. And usually in biology, we say that, hey, if something is happening twice, then it's really, really important. So remembering the pathogen for the next time is incredibly important. And these 2 cells are what our body's going to produce en masse when we get a vaccine. Right? The vaccine is trying to teach our body what that pathogen looks like so that if it shows up again, boom, we can just nip that problem in the bud and just kill it right away. So that's a memory B cell. And then the second kind of cell is called a plasma cell. And these things are awesome. They are kind of like our immune system secret weapon. This is the big guns coming in now. So the plasma cell, it does something called, or produces something called antibodies. Those antibodies, I'll mention them in a bit more detail in a moment. They bind to that foreign antigen on the pathogen. So, just to sketch a little picture here on the side. Sorry, I changed color. But remember our pathogen had the little spiky... Actually, I think my pathogen before was green. Let me make him the same color. There's our pathogen, our evil little guy. Oh, I screwed up the one eyebrow. Sorry. So there's our evil little pathogen, right? Coming to wreak havoc in our body. What happens for these plasma cells is those antibodies, they're actually little proteins that fit perfectly over top of the foreign antigen. So if we do a little sketch, it's going to look like this. So you've got these little antibodies that are binding to that foreign antigen. And what that does is it prevents the pathogen from moving around. It disables it, and it also marks it for destruction. And it disables plus, so it can't really move around. And this part's kind of gnarly. It marks it for destruction. So that's kind of like tying up somebody bad, right? Disabling them. And then you have your macrophages and your killer T's who show up, and the destruction piece happens. They kill them. So these plasma cells and these antibodies are awesome. Let's bind up all of these pathogens, and then the macrophages and killer T's, they just come by and finish them off. It sounds kind of gnarly, but it keeps us healthy. It's a pretty awesome system. So that happens over and over and over again until we've basically killed all the pathogens. And then that means we're only one step away here from being done. We now need to end this response, because this response, all of this work that your body is doing in this cell division, it takes a huge toll on your body. You know, when you get sick, you don't feel good. And a big part of that is because your body is mounting this defense and it's neglecting all of its normal functions. So as soon as we can, we want to stop this crazy adaptive immune response. And that was where those suppressor T cells, this is where they show up and they kind of wave the white flag and say, hey, let's stop. Let's stop. We've beaten the enemy. Let's get back to normal. Let's get feeling good again. In fact, some of the killer T and macrophages, they kill so aggressively that if there's no pathogen to kill, they'll actually start killing healthy cells, because they're literally just like hyper killers. And we want that to stop. So suppressor T cells, they show up and they wave that white flag. They end the immune response. So there you go. That's a long one. There's lots going on there. You do need to be able to, I don't want to stress you out, but you do need to be able to create or recreate all of that for me on a test, which is not coming up tomorrow, so don't worry, or in the next day even. So again, hopefully you paid attention. This is something that we are going to write down together over and over again, because to write it down is going to help you learn it. And so tomorrow, when I'm back and I say, hey, let's grab some paper and go over that adaptive immune response, don't sit there on your phone and say, oh, I already wrote it down. In fact, I will be perfectly honest that to get ready for this lesson, so as I'm writing this down on the screen, I am looking at my notes that I wrote down right before I did it on the screen. So like this is busy, and I want to have it written down and organize my thoughts. You need to do the same thing. So you're going to get there, which is super cool, because look at all that. There's lots going on there. And you're going to have that down in a couple of days. All of you will, if you're willing to pay attention and try. So that part's cool. That's a little feather in your cap. So we'll cut the notes off there. That's lots going on. We'll review this together when I'm back the next day. And have a great rest of your day today. Thanks, everyone.